possibly one you don't find a lot of resources out there. Like people are scared of the Locrian mode because it's crazy. It's a crazy mode, man. And so people like are scared to even say its name. It's like Voldemort. They're scared to say its name, but I'm not scared. I've dealt with crazier people even than that Voldemort dude. That guy's threatened to come to my house. I've had crazier people threaten to come after me than that dude. So I talk about the Locrian mode here. That's what I do. And we're going to go through it just like any other mode, noting that the Locrian mode, although it's not a mode that you commonly like build songs in, although you could, it is a mode that you want to know because you want to know the chord constructions from it, because that chord construction note will be in every other mode. So you'd like to say, if I'm if I'm looking at any of the modes, major scale, minor scale, Dorian, any of the modes, then you're going to hit that Locrian component where you're going to need to build a chord off it. So at the very least, you want to know it for that reason. So let's go up top and just recap what we're doing here. And we're looking at I'm going to start by comparing everything to the major scale, just as a recap, remembering that we're going to be looking at the C major and related modes. So C major, A minor, and related modes with the familiar position in the middle of the guitar. You might call it position 1 or a G-shaped C major position, if you want to call it that, from a caged. That would be the pentatonic. That would be the full 7 notes. Now we're just putting those 7 notes across the entire guitar, and then we're building the shape, remembering that you can learn the guitar by learning the shape and then moving the shape around. You can learn the guitar by learning the formula, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, and so on and so forth, but then alter that formula per note, and then therefore learning the formula from the perspective of each mode, building the same shape but from a different starting point. That to me still seems like the least effective way to kind of visualize the guitar, in part because of the stacked nature of the strings as opposed to a linear nature of a guitar. But maybe that's just me. I haven't spent as much time kind of really working with it in a formula format. So I might do that later so that I can get a better appreciation for it. But now what I do have a good appreciation for, and am building on that appreciation, is the intervals. So, and that's because the intervals will not only help you build the shape so you have the scale anywhere you want to put it, but it makes it easier to see the relationship between the different modes, and it allows you to build chords. Because remember the idea here, and this is where the Locrian comes into play, is that I want to know the notes in the scale, which I can know by shape, right? Or I can know by formula, or I can know it by the intervals. But beyond that, once I know the notes, I'd like to be able to pick every note, which is just a note in the scale, and build a chord off of it. Now, if I want to build a chord off of it, what are my options to do that? Well, one way I can do that is I can just pick whatever I can reach with my fingers. So, and that's totally legit, right? Like I could say, well, if I put my pointer finger on here, what else can I reach? And anything you reach will be some kind of chord, right? So that's kind of just a trial and error method, totally legit thing to do. But you also might try to go at it in a more formal approach, saying I would like to build the normal triad chord and then add a 7, 9, 11, and 13, and so on and so forth. And so how would I go about doing that? Well, you have to know which notes will fit in the scale that you're playing. And if you're in the major scale, that's why people start learning that one, you might learn power chords. That's what I did, right? I was in, like there's punk rock. Again, people have a lot of different ideas of what punk rock means, right? I was listening I don't know, No Effects and stuff that were, but you would think like when you're in high school before the time of YouTube, that is a lot harder to kind of figure out music theory for just a normal kid, you would think. I think even today that would be kind of the case. So you might convert everything to a power chord because you know that all of these notes you can at least just add a fifth. Not that I was into music in high school. I just listened to music in high school. I didn't really start tinkering with this stuff till after college, really. But so that's why I have possibly a little bit different perspective than people that have learned it the whole time, because I kind of might have put together but anyway, so in any case, so it seems to me that you can build a power chord, and that's safe. That's a safe thing to do because it doesn't have the third. So you can take any of the notes and I can build a power chord, and that would be good if I'm in the major scale, the Dorian, the Phrygian, the Lydian, whatever. There's only one note that I can't build a power chord on, right? And so I have a 6 out of 7 chance that I can at least add the fifth, and I'm cool with that, right? So that's nice. So I can build at least a simple kind of like at least partial chord that way. But then I'd like to add the third because it's got the flavor of a major or a minor. So how would I memorize that? Well, the 1, 4, 5, if I look at it from the perspective of the major scale, are the majors. The 2, 3, and 6 are going to be the minors, and the Locrian is the funny one that still has a minor third, but it's kind of a funny one. So that's great if I play in a major scale, but that becomes difficult if I want to play like in Lydian or Mixolydian or the minor scale, because now all of the notes are different. I can't say the 1, 4, 5 is major. The 1, 4, 5 happens to be minor in a minor scale, but it's going to be in a different position everywhere every time I reorientate all the notes. So what can I do? Well, one way I can do it is I can look at each position and name it, possibly numerically based on the major scale, noting that that's just one mode, but as a reference tool so I can more easily determine whether I can construct a major or minor chord from each note no matter what mode I'm in. So that means that I can label these then the modes, and the modes will not only help me to play in the mode, it'll help me to look at the relative position. If I'm in what I would call the second mode, I can also think of that as if I'm in the Dorian mode, I can think of still the first of the Dorian is going to be the Dorian mode, right? That helps me build a chord that would say, well, I know it has a minor third in it, and I also can then, if I know the other interval of the 7, 9, 11, and 13 that's different than it's related, in this case minor scale, then I can build more complex chords from it. So that's what we would like to, that's kind of what we would like to do, right? I'd like to be able to know the shape and then consciously using intervals, know what kind of chords I can build. Is it going to have a minor third or a major third? And then beyond that, getting more complex, what's the 7, 9, 11, and 13, which will not be dependent solely on whether it's major or minor, but will be dependent in essence on what mode that we're talking about. So that's going to be the idea. Now the Locrian mode, notice that the Locrian mode is always going to be there. So if you look at it from a chord construction, if I'm playing in the key of C major or any of the other modes, then notice once I get to this B note, I'm going to get to this B note and I'm going to be like, what do I do with that? Like I can't even add a power chord because it has a flat fifth, right? That's the problem. So I need to be able to, I want to play that because that's the leading tone to go back home. So it's like I want to use the B. It's not like I just want to eliminate the B, right? So at the very least, I would like to know the intervals so that I can build a chord off of that B note, the one note that a lot of people just kind of leave off. And that's also the leading tone that gets you back home if you're talking about a major scale. Even if you're looking at it, well, in any case, that's going to be the idea. So how do we learn the modes? Remember the quick overview of this is we're going to say we'll look at the major scales first, which has these intervals. So a perfect first, a 2-note away major second, a 4-note away major third, a 5-note away perfect fourth, a 7-note away perfect fifth, a 9-note away major sixth, an 11-note away major seven. And then we can compare that to the opposite of the major, which you would think would be the main minor, the minor scale, otherwise known as the sixth mode, the Aeolian. And you would think that the intervals would just be taking all the majors and flattening them to a minor. And that is true, meaning except for the second. So in other words, the minor scale, Aeolian, is going to still have a perfect first, a perfect fourth, and fifth. And all of the minors, the fourth, the third, the sixth, and the seven will be flattened, making them minor, but it'll still have that 2-note away minor second. So then there's one, and once we learn that, we can compare the major modes to the major modes and the minors to the minor, and there will only be one interval difference. So that means the Lydian and Mixolydian will have the same exact intervals as compared to their tonics as the Ionian. They're just going to have one interval difference, the Ionian being the major scale. The Dorian and the Phrygian will only have one interval difference than the Aeolian. So we can do that. But then what about the Locrian? We just ignored it completely. Well, so the Locrian, you can think of it almost as though you can compare it to the Phrygian mode, right? That's because it has one interval difference from the Phrygian mode, and the crazy interval is the flat fifth. So it's kind of like the way I would memorize the Locrian intervals is to say, well, it's kind of like a minor mode, but when you have the minor mode, the Phrygian is even more minor than the minor mode in my thinking. Why? Because it has a one note away minor second. So it does what you would expect the minor mode to do, meaning it flattens all the majors to a minor, and then it still has the perfect fourth and fifth and first, right? But then the Locrian takes that darker Phrygian, and then does something even crazier that no mode does. No mode does this because it's a crazy move, man. Modes don't do that thing, and that means it flattens the five. This one, it flattens the five, so it's a 6-note away flat fifth, which is that really tensiony kind of sound, which is quite useful because music typically means you want to build tension and then release the tension. So you can't get much more tension than that, right? Than the flat five. So you want to kind of, I would think it's useful to play with it, otherwise, because that's going to give you some variance to get building tension. So we want to be able to build that. So it's going to be basically, I would think of it as like a minor scale. It's got a minor third, therefore I would define it as kind of like a minor scale, but it's more minor than the main minor because it has a flat second, which is like the Phrygian, so it's like the darkest Phrygian, plus it actually distorts one of the perfects, the perfect fifth, which most of the modes don't do. Although again, the Lydian does it, but it actually augments the fourth, which is the same interval, but on the Locrian we flat the five, so it's got the crazy flat five. All right, so that's what makes it crazy, man. That's why people don't even want to say its name. They're like, if we say its name, it's going to threaten to come to our house and terrorize us. It's like, whatever, dude. I will not be intimidated like this. I will talk about the Locrian by name, and we'll break it down. I've seen Voldemort. He's more feeble than Joe Biden. I'm not scared of him. Here we go. All right, so anyways, we're on the third now. So this is the defining characteristics, usually of a major or minor mode. But again, most people don't really call the Locrian a minor, even though it has a minor third. So I would say technically it's kind of like a minor mode. But again, people call it the Locrian, right? So, but I would still say it's like a minor mode because it's got a minor third in my thinking. Again, I'm not a scholar in music, so I'm kind of like, you got to take this stuff with a little bit of a grain of salt here. But I do think I'm trying to orientate the worksheet well, and I'm trying to figure it out myself. So, but I would call it a minor mode personally. All right.